Hi, I'm the multifarious fisherman. This is Seven Fish. We are in the office today. I got a report that there's some ice on the lake and I got super excited. We're gonna get out and try to get us a bluegill. So, it appears that the reports of ice on the lake were perhaps a little premature. There is technically ice on the lake, but this might take a minute. I can wait. Yeah, this looks like it might take a little bit. Let's talk about vexillars real quick. I got time to kill. So this is my vexillar. I kind of want to talk to you about what those marks on your vexillar mean. This determines your range. So if I'm in a certain depth of water, I want to be able to adjust that to the depth. If I'm in 15, I need to be deeper than 12 or I won't see it. So I'll go up to the ×2 gives me 20-foot scale. I have two options here. I have a normal mode and I have a low power mode. And what that low power mode allows me to do when I'm in shallow water, this thing will blow out. I'll show you what that looks like. So when you initially turn your vexillar on, you rotate the gain control. If you're clear at the 0 line, you will have no bottom reading or anything, just a line at the top. As you rotate the gain knob, you will see a bottom. As you rotate it further, the bottom will become a much larger mark. You may see fish, you may not, depending on what's down there. Put your jig down the hole, unless your gain is extremely low. You'll see that jig, and when it's right under the transducer, it will give a larger mark. But as it sinks, that mark will become smaller and less defined. On a standard vexillar color palette is green is the weakest signal, yellow is an intermediate, and red is the strongest signal return. People ask, how big of a fish does it take to make a red mark? Well, that's an impossible question to answer. If the fish is in extremely deep water, it's a long distance from the transducer, it may return a small signal even though it's a decent sized fish. If you have a fish very close to the transducer, it'll return a stronger signal. Where the fish sits in the cone will determine how strong a signal it will get back to. So if it's out on the edge of the cone, you may just see a little bit of green and think, oh, that's not a fish I'm particularly worried about. As that fish moves closer to the center of the cone, it will start to get some yellow in it, maybe some red in it. I fish predominantly small tungsten jigs. When you put a waxworm on it, the waxworm is 3 or more times the size of the head. I will set my sensitivity so that my jig with a waxworm on it will give me a green return with a little bit of yellow in it. You jig it up and down, you might see more or less yellow, but I like to have that return give me a solid green signal with a little bit of yellow in it. The reason that I set it that way is when I have a fish come in under the hole, if that fish bites and I don't hook the fish, I can jig my tungsten a little bit, and what I will find is that if I don't see yellow in my return anymore, chances are good that they've stolen my waxworm. When my jig gets down to the level that I want to be at and I move my jig, I may find that a fish comes in almost always underneath the level of my jig. The reason for that is the fish is at the edge of the cone and my jig is dead in the center of the cone, and that fish is not below it. When you see that, a lot of times you think the fish is lower, so when they move from the outside edge of the cone towards the center of the cone, they're actually getting closer to the transducer even though they're not changing depth, so it will seem that they're moving up to your jig. When your jig is very close to the bottom, it seems like fish grow up out of the bottom to hit your jig, but in reality the signal's just hitting the bottom at the center of the cone. Once I see a fish at the level of my jig, I'll quit looking at my vexillar and actually move over to look at the spring bobber, and the spring bobber will indicate to me if the fish strikes the jig or not. We did a video on spring bobbers and kind of outlined that. In that video, I will put a link in the description to that video. I want to thank you for joining us today. Obviously didn't get the ice content we were hoping for. That's going to take a little while yet. It's early November, or middle November. But we will have ice soon enough. It's coming. Wanted to let you know what those marks on your vexillar meant. I hope you join us next week for another video.